Who discovered laser beams, the radio, neon lights, the induction motor, dematerialization devices, remote-controlled torpedo boats? Would you believe that they were all discovered before the turn of the century, and all by one man? His name is Nikola Tesla. A world-famous figure throughout the Gilded Age, living among the 400 at the Waldorf Astoria, this great Serbian-American died in virtual obscurity, although he was the undisputed inventor of the polyphase alternating current system, which lies at the heart of our industrial electronic age. Before Tesla's creation, electricity could only be sent about a mile. After him, it could be transported hundreds of miles. Armed with the great secret of this invention, the young college-educated Serbian came to America to work for the Wizard of Menlo Park, Thomas Edison, the greatest inventor of all time. Edison, quite content with direct current, would hear none of the young visionary's discussion of what Edison thought were dangerous alternating currents. A bitter dispute arose over promised monies that were never delivered, and Tesla quit. Soon after, in 1888, Tesla built a working model of the induction motor and the 40-patent AC polyphase system and sold it to George Westinghouse for $1 million plus royalties. Battling Edison in the War of the Currents, Westinghouse was able to implement the Tesla system at the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. This mammoth undertaking, which comprised almost 10 square miles of buildings, parks, canals, and bridges, stood along Lake Michigan. Over 20 countries, including Germany, England, Spain, Ceylon, East India, and Siam, participated in this landmark exposition, which celebrated not only the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America, but also the new and spectacular age of technology. For the first time, the United States proclaimed itself a superpower. Leading the way to the coming world of electricity, Chicago's White City, as it was also named, became the first metropolis to be lit by the Tesla system. Now a bon vivant of the gay 90s social elite, Tesla toured the world as a celebrity. Touted by many as the new Edison, the handsome inventor moved into the Waldorf Astoria, where he could dine with the likes of John Jacob Astor and Mark Twain, and invite them back to his magical laboratory. There, in the wizard's chambers, Tesla would perform fantastic electrical experiments. As a finale, he would send 1,000,000 volts harmlessly through his body. In 1895, the Tesla system was used to harness Niagara Falls, and then it quickly spread throughout the globe. Tesla, however, had a greater dream. He planned to create a worldwide electrical system distributing light, voice, pictures, and also power by means of wireless transmission. In other words, he planned to usurp the invention he had sold to Westinghouse and do away with transmission lines altogether. In 1899, he built a 200-foot-tall prototype of his magnifying transmitter in Colorado Springs, high in the Rocky Mountains, to send impulses to China or Australia, or maybe even to a nearby planet. By tapping the resonant frequency of the Earth and transforming electrical energies to higher frequencies, Tesla created 60-foot lightning bolts, ball lightning with accompanying thunder, laser-like beams, and he illuminated light bulbs by means of wireless at distances of 25 miles. During one cosmic moment, while tracking thunderstorms 600 miles away, Tesla claimed to have received pulsed frequencies from outer space. He speculated that they were messages from Venus or Mars. In 1901, before the seeds of this interplanetary tale had taken root to lead to his ultimate loss of credibility and ruin, Tesla had formed a partnership with J. Pierpont Morgan, then the most powerful financier of his day. Tesla worked with architect Stanford White, designer of the original Madison Square Garden and Niagara Falls power plant, and lover of 16-year-old Evelyn Nesbit. With White's creativity and Tesla's vision, they drew blueprints for a 200-acre turn-of-the-century radio city. Tesla erected a gigantic 15-story transmission tower on Long Island. He was hoping to illuminate the Paris Exposition of 1902 by sending energy through the earth and air from his magnifying transmitter situated on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. This project was never completed, as Morgan refused to supply additional funds when they were needed. Tesla, mad scientist of the Gilded Age, will take us back to the turn of the century and relive the fantastic encounters this electrical genius had with such men as Edison, Westinghouse, White, and Twain. The secrets of Tesla's strange life, peculiar love for his best friend's wife, and relationship with J. Pierpont Morgan will be revealed for the first time, and thus the world will know the truth about the man who is considered by those who know to be the world's greatest inventor.
I'd like to say what an honor it is for me to be here. I feel like I have come to the mountain. Your logo, of course, is very Teslaic, and obviously it is only a matter of time before Tesla himself will make it to the big screen. I want to thank Tim Eden, a wonderful guy and my partner on this project, Kate Shore for inviting me, Richard Hims, who helped me about 15 years ago on this, and also George Lucas for building this incredible place, and we took the tour. You see it again, just an incredible experience. This first picture is actually a photo I took. Is Mike still on?
We can hear you.
Okay. This first picture is actually a photo I took of one of the recent comets at the Newport Bridge near my home in Rhode Island. As you can see from this, and so I'm going to sit down and now go through this. This is the title of our project. As you can see from this photo, Tesla is alive and well, making an appearance in the new movie Antitrust, starring Tim Roberts. Tesla has also appeared in numerous other films, such as Tucker, the Man in His Dreams, in veiled form in Buckaroo Banzai, Close Encounters, and in the David Bowie, Nikola cult classic, The Man Who Fell to Earth. In books, he's appeared in paperback in City of Lights, which is a new book out, in the sequel to A Celestine Prophecy, and as part of the composite character John Galt in Ayn Rand's classic Atlas Shrugged. Here we see the equivalent of the $1 bill in Yugoslavia. Tesla's a great hero there.
Yeah. Still on
And here he's on the cover of my book, Wizard, which is now in its 4th edition. And so I was invited to speak at the United Nations a couple of years ago with Tesla's nephew at the far left and the ambassador from Yugoslavia right under the insignia. The idea was to create an international holiday promoting peace, innovation, and world brotherhood on Tesla's birthday, July 10th, a day the entire world could celebrate together. Tesla was born in Smiljan, Croatia in 1856. His father was a Serbian Catholic priest. And this is one of his sisters, Milka. So we don't have a photo of his mother, but I'm sure his mother probably looked very similar to this. Tesla's father was, as I said, a priest, so Tesla grew up, he was an Orthodox Catholic priest, and Tesla grew up inventing a number of devices with his brother, Dane. This was a bug propeller device. These are June bugs. And as the story goes, Tesla loved to play with this device until one of his friends came along and ate one of the bugs, and then he no longer wanted to play with this device. This is a photo I took of the actual house where he was born and the barn behind the house and the church you saw before. When Tesla was 5 years old, his brother Dane died, and this is the actual grave in Smiljan, in an accident with a horse. A lot of psychoanalytic aspects to how that influenced him later in life. I think some of it is interest in extraterrestrials, wanting to contact the other side, is kind of a veiled form of trying to recontact his brother. So after Dane died, Tesla was kind of down and out, and he had a row with his father. His father actually slapped him across the face, and he was very lonely. And there was a fire in the town. The fire engine wouldn't work. And Tesla had a vision that there was a kink in the hose, so he dove into the river, and he unkinked the hose, and then he became a hero. And this is one of the first cases of him being hailed for his inventive mind. So here's the fire. This is Gospic, which is 5 miles away. And after Dane died, Tesla moved to the city, and he loved the farm. Later, he's in love with pigeons, and there's this other side to him. But I think that he saw both city life and farm life, and he was sad to leave the farm. Here we also see that this area in Yugoslavia where he was born is war-torn area. NATO was bombing Belgrade just a couple of years ago. World War I started in this area. This is about 50 miles from his house. Is Clifford C. Falls, and some of you know the story. When he was about 8 years old, he had a vision that he would someday harness Niagara Falls. He had seen a picture of Niagara Falls. And they also discussed his tremendous powers of eidetic imagery. So he could look in his mind and envision various concepts and build certain things. And I think cinematically you could do the same kind of thing of entering his mind, and some of the things that he didn't complete, you could complete in fantasy. He went to Budapest right after college. In college, he had come up with the idea of how to harness alternating current. This is a photograph of him, his first photograph. He's probably about 20, 21 here. And this is the statue in Gospic that I took in 1986. Tesla was a Serb born in Yugoslavia, in Croatia. The Croats and the Serbs were at war with each other, and so this statue has been bombed, and it no longer exists. The same statue, though, can be seen on Rhode Island. This is Paris in the 1880s where he worked for Edison. All of the industries in the 1880s and before that were along rivers. A river moves downhill and you have a water wheel, and that allows the turbine to turn. Before Tesla, we had something called direct current. And with direct current, you could only send energy about a mile. And then all you could do would be to light homes. After Tesla's invention, you could send energy hundreds of miles, and you could run machinery. Alternating current changes its direction of flow at many hundreds of times per second. What Tesla came up with was two circuits out of phase with each other. And so what he did was he was able to change this concept, the back and forth motion, to a rotary effect. And this is the fundamental concept behind our electrical power industry. So he moved to New York in 1884 to work for Tom Edison. And one of our ideas would be to try and reconstruct New York City from all the old photographs. There are tremendous pictures from the times. Edison, of course, was the Wizard of Menlo Park. He was the most famous inventor in the world at the time. And he had the phonograph, which was this magical invention which could capture sound and speak in different languages. So Tesla arrives with this new idea where he's going to bring alternating current to the world. But Edison is using direct current. He cannot conceive of how you can harness something that's going backwards and forwards and many times a second into one direction. They think Tesla's nuts. And so he doesn't want Tesla to discuss alternating current at all. So Tesla agrees to redesign Edison's direct current equipment. And he thought he could then talk him into it. And Edison supposedly offered him $50,000 if he could make his direct current equipment highly efficient. And here's Tesla fixing Edison's equipment. So once Tesla did that, Edison, of course, wasn't going to pay him because he was a jokester, and Tesla quit. Here is some more slides of these old postcards from the turn of the century. And Tesla's story spans from the 1850s to the 1940s, so you could kind of morph the city from the pre-day of cars to the modern day of neon lights. This is a drawing I found of Edison and Morgan. J.P. Morgan was the first man to ever have a private house lit by electrical lights. And this was Broadway in the 1880s. And you see the power lines and the phone lines at the time. Edison was very different than Tesla. Edison surrounded himself with many, many workers, whereas Tesla was pretty much a loner. He only had one or two workers. When Tesla quit in 1885, he began to build ditches, and it was a very terrible time because he had to actually build ditches for Edison's power companies, and he's holding on to a concept that's going to change the world. We're still using his rotating magnetic field and 40 patent AC polyphase system. So he starts his own company with some backing, and then Westinghouse realizes what's going on, so Westinghouse offers him equivalent of, well, he offered him $500,000 and $2.50 per watt, which would be worth tens of millions of dollars. But later in the War of the Currents, Westinghouse will tell Tesla that he cannot pay him the royalty. And so we'll see some of this happen in a few minutes. I'm also a handwriting expert, so I've got some handwritings in here. This is Westinghouse's signature. And it's a very clear, aesthetically pleasing handwriting, and I would say this handwriting of an honest fellow. This is the Westinghouse electric AC polyphase system. In the initial stages, he wanted to publicize Tesla's name because he was in so many battles with Edison and General Electric. But later he removes Tesla's name, and so people would remember the name of Westinghouse, but they would forget the name of Tesla. And here's Tesla about 1889. So he spoke at Columbia University, and already in 1889 he's just sold his patents to Westinghouse for a king's ransom. And he's already come up with the idea of wireless communication and high-frequency phenomena. He's the inventor of fluorescent lights as well. He realized that the Edison light bulb, you will change the light bulb, you burn your fingers on a light bulb. He said it's all being wasted in heat. Why not just have an electric lamp that produces pure light? And so he invented the light bulb, but he also had a better idea. He said, what do we need the wires for? So he had wireless lights in the 1890s, which he showed people like Steinmetz and many other people that attended his conference. Roger Sperry, the Sperry gyroscope, Millikan, who's a Nobel Prize winner Sprague for the electric train, and Westinghouse. All these people were there. All the elite of the electrical community were there. I also have a great quote I meant to read about when Tesla discovered how the rotating magnetic field would work. He was reading Goethe's Faust at the time, the play Faust, and he was reading the line, "He sinks and fades, the day is lived and gone." And suddenly he sees it. He says, "Pygmalion, seeing the statue come to life, could not have been more deeply moved. 1,000 secrets of nature I would have stumbled upon accidentally. I would have given for that one which I wrested from her against all odds and at the peril of my existence." Now this is Charles Steinmetz. Steinmetz initially was on Tesla's side because there were debates. In Europe they were using the Tesla system to send electricity 100 miles, way before Westinghouse was. And one of the inventors of that device was saying it was his invention. His name was Dobrowolski. The other one was C.E.L. Brown. And Brown said, "No, we're just using Tesla's patents." And Steinmetz came up in an electrical meeting and he said, "Yes, that's true, you're just using Tesla's patents." About 5 weeks later, Steinmetz got a job for General Electric. And General Electric wanted to get around the patents. And so Steinmetz stopped being Tesla's pal and began to publish textbooks on the AC polyphase system. And they were in the 1890s. You can go into the library and find them. And Tesla's name doesn't even appear in the book. It's like writing a book on the theory of relativity and leaving out Einstein's name. Tesla then went to England, and in England he spoke in front of the Royal Society. So he spoke in front of people like Crookes and Dewar, J.J. Thomson, Nobel Prize winner, Oliver Lodge, Ambrose Fleming, Priest, Lord Kelvin, Lord Raleigh. All these people saw Tesla's inventions of wireless communication. So here we see wireless way before Marconi's about 16 years old at this time, and we already see the wireless fluorescent light and also the concept of electrical tuning, because this light bulb that he's holding will only illuminate when a certain resonant frequency is reached. He would have other light bulbs which would illuminate when other frequencies would be reached as well. Then Tesla returns to New York City, and he sets up his own lab on Houston Street. Now at this time, Edison's stuck with direct current, so he decides to get involved in electrocuting people with the Westinghouse current, and he came up with the idea of to Westinghouse somebody. And he appeared at the trial of Kemmler. Kemmler was an axe murderer, and he was the first man to die in the electric chair. And Edison actually appeared at the trial and told people how to electrocute a man. You put 2 hands in wet jars, you put the feet in wet jars, and you should shave their head. He's testifying in court as to do that. He also electrocuted cats and dogs, horses, and even an elephant, all to show how dangerous the current was. Now here's where Tesla's brilliance is. Tesla now knows he's losing the PR campaign against the Wizard of Menlo Park, so he decides to send electricity through his own body. This is on the cover of the World magazine, which was like the New York Times. And he figures that he can send electricity through his own body at a very high frequency but low amperage. And of course this has been used in many, many special effects, this concept too. And Tesla was already in the early 1890s getting the idea that electricity was also being sent through the earth. When I was a kid, I had a crystal radio set, and my father was a television man. He used to put televisions, he was one of the first television repairmen. And he would go on, I would go around, he'd put the aerials on. And so we had built this crystal radio. All it had was a jar and wire wrapped around it, and it had earphones. And we had a wire out the window, and that was it. And I couldn't pick up any radio stations. I grew up on Long Island. So my father couldn't figure it out. He then took another wire and attached it to the radiator. And all of a sudden, I could hear radio stations. And then I knew that the ground was important. Here's an early photo of Tesla in his laboratory. And here's some of the special effects that people saw in the 1890s. Now, the next bid was for the Chicago World's Fair. The ultimate goal was who was going to get the bid for Niagara Falls. It was Edison's plan and J.P. Morgan's plan to bring all of the industries in the Northeast to Buffalo and line them up all along the falls. So whoever would win the bid for Niagara Falls would control the decided to do was to take $1 million loss to light the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. And this is such an important aspect of the story. So what I did was I got a lot of old drawings and slides of the fair to give you an idea of this incredible fair. This is the Court of Honor. If we go back, you can see it here. Here is the Statue of the Republic. 80,000 people could sit in this building and watch an event. This is the electrical building. This is the main part of the fair, but this is only part of the fair. This is Machinery Hall. This is this building here. And here we see the Court of Honor. This is the Statue of the Republic in the back. And here is looking at it from the other way. So here you've got the Statue of the Republic, and then looking at it this way. My idea, of course, was if we could put it into a computer and just rebuild it there. It would be an incredible event. This is opening day at the fair. This building here is the Agriculture Building. And here is Diana up at the top. This is designed by Stanford White, who was a good friend of Tesla's, and he plays a major role because he designs Wardenclyffe. There's a photo of White in his early days. He designed the Washington Arch in New York City. And this is White's signature. It's a very modern handwriting. It's the handwriting of a genius. He was highly, highly intelligent, very rapid writing. He designed the Capitol building in Providence, where we live. He designed the original Madison Square Garden, which was torn down in the 1920s. This was considered the most beautiful building in New York City. And this is Diana up at the top. And so we're back at the fair. The fair before this had the Eiffel Tower. This fair had the Ferris wheel. It was a huge wheel. And here you just see the range of events here. These are some of the other buildings at the fair. And here is the electrical building from the back. This is the electrical building. We're going to go inside this building. And here's another drawing of the building. You just see the size and scope of it. And so here we see, this is Edison's Tower of Light, Westinghouse's name, and here we see Westinghouse Electric Tesla polyphase system. This is the point where he wants to publicize his name because he's in so many lawsuits. So Tesla's world famous, becoming world famous at this time because it's his system that's lighting there. It's the first city ever lit by electricity. This is inside Machinery Hall. This is Tesla's rotating magnetic field, and he had an egg that spun. This was a takeoff on Columbus. Columbus got money by making an egg stand on its end. So Tesla made the egg stand on its end by creating this ring of whirling ring of energy, and so the egg would begin to spin on its top. I saw that in Belgrade. And this is the motor that was run, one of the generators that was running the fair. So here's the fair lit at night. And so now Tesla returns to New York, and he begins to meet people in high society. This is Robert Underwood Johnson in Tesla's lab. And this is Katherine Johnson. And when you read about Katherine and Robert, Robert was the editor of Century Magazine, and Katherine had a platonic love affair with Tesla. It's a very poignant story, all the letters between the two of them. And Katherine would try to get Tesla married, and many famous people like Mark Twain and Rudyard Kipling and Teddy Roosevelt would dine at the Johnsons' house, and then they would go back to Tesla's lab. Marguerite Merrington was a playwright that Tesla liked very much, and they were trying to get them married. Neither of them ever married. She died in the 1950s. This is Riverside Park, and in our screenplay we have Marguerite Merrington living in the Riverside Park. And here's a drawing of maybe what she would look like. And Tesla also invented fountains, water fountains. This is in Central Park. And he would appear as the Svengali in the electrical journals. This is before people had light bulbs in their house. He was a guy with lightning coming out of his hands. And Mark Twain is apologizing because he couldn't come to his house that day. John Muir Woods was a good friend of Tesla's. Tesla worked, Niagara Falls is non-polluting, renewable source of energy. This is very important. Tesla wanted to hook his inventions to the wheelwork of nature and not tap the earth of things like oil. So fortunately they won that battle. Roosevelt, of course, he knew. This is Stanford White at the Washington Arch. And Tesla would spend most of his Christmases with the Johnsons. And Catherine would be very vigorous in having, I want to see you now, you must come. Because Tesla was a loner, and he spent all his time by himself. But Catherine, I think, lived vicariously through Tesla, particularly when he became more and more famous. And here's Tesla's handwriting when he was very happy and in good spirits. Here's Twain and Joseph Jefferson. This guy here is Dickinson Alley. He is the first, one of the first photographers of special effects photography. He took all of these photos. He took this photo and ran into the picture. And here is Tesla's involved in electrotherapy. This says it's treatment of her lower back. I don't know if it's her lower back, but she seems pretty happy. Tesla then moved into the Waldorf Astoria. He was good friends with John Jacob Astor, who gave him $100,000. Astor was also involved. He wrote a book about traveling to Jupiter, where they were monsters living on Jupiter. And this is inside the Waldorf Astoria. And you just have the plushness of the story. And this is my favorite photo of Tesla, taken by Dickinson Alley. It's actually, he's whipping the light bulb around, and then a strobe comes on and catches him at this particular instant. So Tesla was into PR at that time. And this kind of takeoff of Catherine and Tesla, that they had a love that could never be. In 1895, there was a fire at Tesla's lab, and it was destroyed. He lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. But then they won the bid to harness Niagara Falls, and Tesla appeared there in January of 1897. And I wondered, why did they go in the winter? This was the concept of putting all the factories, which now they no longer had to do. From Tesla's invention, you could now harness electricity in Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, New York, the entire Northeast. Some of you remember the blackout in the Northeast in the 1960s. That was the range of Tesla's invention as compared to Edison's, where you could send energy 3 or 4 blocks and only to light light bulbs. Tesla's invention run power. And here's Westinghouse with his wife at Niagara Falls. This is a shot I took of the falls. And this was it in the winter. So they went in January, I think, because the falls were so spectacular in the winter. And this was the power plant designed by Stanford White. And these are the huge Tesla generators. And you see Tesla's name written on there. And this is the statue that's not destroyed, the companion statue in Niagara Falls. Tesla then came back to Madison Square Garden, and he showed the remote-controlled robotic boat. This boat has within it the concept of the cellular telephone, the garage door opener, radio frequencies, radio guidance systems. It's one of the most brilliant inventions, 1898. And so when they sent the remote-controlled robot to Mars, that was the link that we were trying to tap into at the UN. He also saw it as a machine that could think, and he said that this was one of the first. He also saw it as a machine that could think, and he said that this was one of the first of a new race of beings on the planet. I'll see if I can find the quote. The robot, Tesla endows it with his own mind. Not only is it a new technological creation, but a machine which could think. It was also the first of a new species of non-biological life forms to grace the planet. Whether this is Tesla talking, whether the automaton be of flesh and bone or wood and steel, it mattered little, provided it could provide all the duties required of it like an intelligent being. It could do what it was told to do and also what it was told not to do, and it could make decisions on its own. He also said that the robots could reproduce themselves, and here's the idea of, this is a new article that was, I think, about 2-3 years ago, and I was able to find a photo of a robot that, the first robot that's able to reproduce itself, and here she is. And Tesla went to Colorado Springs to test his wireless system, and this is his tower in Colorado Springs, and this is another special effects photograph that he brought Dickinson Alley back just to take the photo. These are 60-foot-long lightning bolts. Tesla's not really sitting there. It's a double exposure because had he been sitting there, he'd be dead. And while he's doing this, Marconi is sending beep, beep, beep across from following the boating races, the yacht races. America's Cup off New York. So he's doing maybe 2-3 miles, and Tesla's sending energy around the Earth. Tesla also has the ability to send voice, power, and pictures. Marconi could only send Morse code. Marconi did not understand how you could send the concept of voice and pictures and the idea of television. Tesla's high frequencies is the basis of all of that. And when you read in the history of TV, they all give Tesla credit for that. This is Tesla's handwriting. And you see a very small n, which is important because he saw himself small sometimes in relationship to the universe. He thought he had received frequencies from outer space. And this was, there was a lot of belief in life on Mars at the time. Here's Mars. And one night, he received 3 pulses on his equipment. And he attributed them to perhaps intelligent beings from Mars. They were a million years ahead of us, and they were ready to welcome the humans who are now into the new age. This is a lightning storm, and of course this story, this is a real lightning storm, should really make use of, tremendous use of lightning. And this is my favorite UFO picture. It's in Yugoslavia. And this really is the first message from Mars. You can't read it at the bottom, but it says first message from Mars. It was in Life magazine. So Tesla sends energy around the entire Earth, and Marconi's sending beep, beep, beep across 3 or 4 miles, and he's getting all the headlines. And here Tesla's lighting electrical light bulbs 40 miles away. So he returns to New York City. He now wants to launch his new system, and he seeks out J.P. Morgan. Now we see cars coming in, and so the world is changing so rapidly. And here's Tesla writing of his actual reception of the impulse. Brethren, we have received a message from another world unknown, and it reads 1, 2, 3. Close Encounters also dealt with this concept that how would extraterrestrials interact with us, and it would be perhaps through mathematical means. Here's a picture of the handsome man himself, J.P. Morgan, on the cover of a magazine just a couple of months ago. So he forms a partnership with Morgan. Tesla tells him of his great plans to try and light the Paris Exposition from Long Island. And Morgan says, all I care about is stock transactions when I'm in Europe. So this is the idea of Wardenclyffe. So Tesla has the idea of transmitting voice, pictures, light, and power throughout the whole world. The whole concept of cellular telephones, he had already invented the idea of multiplying frequencies to create an unlimited number of wireless channels. So he was hoping to get wireless telephones at this time, and Morgan really could not understand what was going on. This was Morgan's 2 daughters. One of them is Anne. She's on the right, and she had a very good interest in Tesla. I found letters between them at the Tesla Museum in Belgrade. Morgan, to show you how powerful he is, this is the, let's see, this is the Kaiser. I think this is the King of England, and this is the President of the United States, and here's Morgan. Morgan was the most powerful man in the world, and that's who Tesla went with, because he was the greatest inventor in the world. And here's the actual contract, and you see Morgan's imperial signature, where Morgan offers Tesla $150,000 to build his tower to send electricity, wireless communication across the Atlantic. Here's Tesla at his height, and this picture has also been made into drawings too. Get a good view of what he looked like when he's really peaking in 1900 and 1901. He just formed a partnership with the richest man in the world to change the world. He wants to create a radio city in New York, out on Long Island. He hires Stanford White to design an entire city. They get 2,000 acres out there. They're going to build a whole high-tech industry out there. That's what he's envisioning. Morgan sails off to Europe. And this is Stanford White out on Long Island. He's this guy over here. And we visited his house. His house is still there. We snuck onto the property a couple of months ago, Lois and I did. And this is the actual laboratory. It still exists out on Long Island, in Shoreham, Long Island. And this is the base of the tower. Now what happened was, Tesla found out that Marconi was pirating his apparatus, so instead of building a 90-foot tower, he decides to build a 180-foot tower. And he tells Morgan that if you double the size of the tower, not only will you send images to Europe, but you'll control the whole Earth. And so your revenues will be basically infinite just by doubling the costs. And Morgan, of course, is not going to be too happy about that. White is now having an affair with the Floridora girls. One in particular was Evelyn Nesbit. She was 16 years old. And so while White is building this tower with Tesla, he's having an affair with the Gibson girl of the era. And here Marconi succeeds in sending Morse code across the Atlantic the same year, 1901. And Tesla is now out of money. This is what Marconi's system looks like. And again, all you can send is Morse code. You don't have the capability to send complex information. You have to use Tesla's system. Tesla now has the tower, but he doesn't have the top. And he goes to Morgan. He says, I've run out of money. This is Harry Thor, who will come into the picture. He's now in love with Evelyn, so you've got this love triangle, and he marries her. He's worth $80 million in 1901 dollars. And here's Evelyn. And Averill Harriman is now wants part of the railroads, so he buys out the Northern Pacific Railroad out from underneath Morgan, while Morgan is in Europe the very same year, 1901, and creates a huge stock market crash. And so Tesla now has to go to Morgan and ask him for more money because he ran out of money. And McKinley has been assassinated, and it's Morgan's friend. So he goes to this Wall Street, and he tells Morgan, I need more money. I need another $75,000 to finish the tower. And Morgan says, wait a second, it's 180 feet. You said it was only going to be 90 feet. Well, you don't understand. If I double the size, I can control the whole Earth. And Morgan, of course, says, you violated our contract. So now Tesla's stuck, and he doesn't know what to do. So he raises $50,000 on his own. He's living in the Waldorf, and he starts to meet with Henry Clay Frick and Jacob Schiff and Thomas Fortune Ryan. These are people that Frick, for instance, got $60 million from Morgan in 1900 for U.S. Steel, for his share of U.S. Steel. These are the people that Tesla's negotiating with, and he brings them all to Morgan, and every single one of them, the deals fall through. Tesla's envisioning getting rid of the idea of fuel on planes. You would get energy from the towers. You wouldn't need to use oil. And this is my own special effects photograph of the tower. So Tesla tells Morgan, I harnessed Niagara, Mr. Morgan. This is not a boast, only my credentials. And Morgan says, too bad. Tesla says, the subways are built on my system, and you own the subways. The electrical railroads are all part of the AC polyphase system. And Morgan doesn't want to help him. Now the question is, why doesn't Morgan ultimately want to help him? And I think the reason was he didn't know how to build customers. He was also involved in a steel strike. There was a lot of anarchy at the time, and he could not conceive of what Tesla was saying, that the revenues would come in a different way. He was also making money with his copper, lumber, and rubber. So he wanted wires. He knew how to build customers, and he had a very stable system, and Tesla was threatening all of that. So Tesla is now freaking out, and he goes back to his house, to his lab, and he sends electricity through his body to soothe himself. And I found letters to that effect. This is inside his lab at Wardenclyffe. And I think of like Bela Lugosi in Dracula, this going down in there, or Frankenstein. This is his actual lab. And Catherine now is in tears. She tries to meet with Morgan to get more money, because Tesla says, I'm going to advance the world a century. And Morgan, of course, won't meet with her. And he borrows some money from Robert Johnson. He has a deal with Ryan. Ryan gives him $10,000 and is going to give him the balance, another $90,000. He meets with Morgan. I actually found the actual days in November 1905, I think. And the deal doesn't fall through because Morgan diverts him into into the Equitable life insurance company. So here's Tesla's idea of sending power around the world, wireless communication. This is downstairs. The tower goes 120 feet down into the base, and he's got tunnels underneath with earth grippers, which is huge pieces of metal which are gripping the earth, which is going to electrify the whole earth. And this is the whole idea of really getting into, the mystery of really resurrecting Wardenclyffe, not just the tower, but what's going on inside the generators and underneath as well. And here's Tesla's handwriting, pleading with Morgan. And he says, let me see if I can find the quote. He says to Morgan, once you say no, it is no. May gravity repel instead of attract. May right become wrong. All reason must founder on the rock of your brutal resolve. It is Is there nothing I can say that can make you a new offer? I tell you I shall return your investment 100-fold. I'm like a man swimming against the tide that is carrying him down. I tell you I shall advance the world a century. And Morgan won't agree. And I think a good story of Morgan, I think you have to see Morgan in many lights, and not just see him as a bad guy, but see him as a complex person trying to control the world with a steel strike and anarchy, and not really knowing what Tesla's wild card is all about. So Tesla's last hope is with Stanford White, who's a good friend of Morgan's, who's built Madison Square Garden with Morgan. So he goes to White, and White says, I'll meet with Morgan, and I think maybe I can get the 75 grand that you need, which is pocket change to Morgan. And so here's Stanford White at the time. And so in the garden in 1906, a very, very famous story, Harry Floor now finds out, he's married to Evelyn, that she's been sleeping for many years with the great architect. So he shoots and kills Stanford White. It's one of the most famous murders of the 20th century. And here's Harry Floor on a good day. And he went to jail for murdering, the voucher. Tesla goes back to his lab. Westinghouse wants his power generators back. He's out of money, and so he launches Wardenclyffe one moment, and he really does. And this is the tower as far as he got it. And you can see he built the top, and you can see the drama of the photo. Again, this is a Dickinson-Allen photo. And Tesla's handwriting falls apart. He's crushed. This great system that he's going to change the world, wireless communication, the whole idea of the internet, bringing humans together from all parts of the world, is gone. He just is crushed. And here's a picture of Morgan, how he really looked. He had warts all over his nose. And it was very difficult to look him in the eye. And here is the tower lit. And here we see Tesla crushed. And this is what happened to the tower in 1917. It was destroyed. So Tesla now wants to resurrect it, and just to show his great genius, he figures if he can come up with a better motor than the motor that's in the car, he has a steam motor. He tries to sell to Henry Ford. He can then get the money. He can make $10, $15 million on the selling of the new motor, the Tesla turbine, to come back and resurrect the new Wardenclyffe. And this is the turbine, which is a very innovative device, which is used in jet skis, and it's also used in pumps. There's a lot of information on that. And here's Tesla's idea of wireless transmission of power. He was also involved in many other things as well. He moves into the Metropolitan Towers in 1910, and Morgan is dead, but his son now gives Tesla money. And here you can see, here's Madison Square Garden, and here's now the new tallest building in the world, and here's the Flatiron Building. Again, the whole idea would be to resurrect all of this. He builds a hovercraft with John Jacob Astor, but Astor dies in the Titanic. This is Tesla's hovercraft that he flew in 1937. In 1915, Tesla and Edison were to share the Nobel Prize. At least it was announced, but neither of them ever got the Nobel Prize. And Edison forms a partnership with Sarnoff to start RCA. And Tesla's selling turbines to the Germans, hoping again to get the money to return to Wardenclyffe. He then moves into the Woolworth building, which was the new tallest building. Well, anyhow, it's a big one, right? And it's a magnificent building, obviously still built. Go into the lobby when you go to New York. It's just an incredible building. And then, of course, the Germans, World War I starts, and you can see wireless communication is very involved. Tesla had been making money. He was helping the Germans in their wireless plant. He obviously, though, was a patriot. And once the Germans got involved in the war against America, he ceased all connection with them. Tesla is also the inventor of the Osprey, the concept of the Osprey helicopter aircraft, where it takes off like a helicopter and then moves into the aircraft position. He also wanted to have, everyone would have their own flying machine, and this was Tesla's idea. He was trying to sell them in the 1920s. They'd be $1,000 a piece, and so for certain distances you could have your own flying machine. This is a photo of the Osprey, which was used in the Gulf War. It's a $40 million plane. He made the cover of Time in 1931, and Einstein wrote him a letter of congratulations. He's inventor of the flying wing. This is the new space shuttle, which is yet to be built. And he also is inventor of Star Wars technology. He was negotiating with Roosevelt and with many the other Western powers during World War World War II. This is what the tower, the particle beam weapon actually looked like. I figured out how it worked, and so I put that drawing in the book. And here's the letter from Einstein congratulating Tesla. Tesla disagreed with Einstein on some of his theories. And he also believed in the idea of cosmic energy. He had what's called free energy today, but he had a new device which no one totally understands, which is going to draw energy from the cosmos. I think it had to do with the differential between day and night and the cosmic ray somehow harnessing that differential. And then J. Edgar Hoover started trailing him because his nephew was the ambassador from Yugoslavia, and he wanted to help Yugoslavia against the Germans. They were a communist country. And here's, sci-fi concept of the diabolical ray. Now, some of you might not realize, but this is J. Edgar Hoover and Nixon and his wife. Nixon was also an inventor in vertical aircraft ideas. And so here's a photo of his invention. Tesla also fell in love with a pigeon in the 1940s. And Hugo Gernsback resurrected him in all these fantastic stories. He was able to finish the tower in fantasy in these drawings, and that would be the idea, is that you could finish a film on a very high note by showing the total vision through his mind and through this, and this is the Teslaic world. It's easy to view Tesla's story as one of tragedy, but this is not so. Early in his career and for many years, Tesla lived a life of a bon vivant at the Waldorf Astoria at the height of the Gilded Age. He had friends in high positions, wealth and fame, and most importantly, he lived to see much of his vision manifest itself in direct relationship to his efforts. In his own view, like a god, he helped tame nature's forces, using non-polluting renewable energy to suit human needs. Our electrical power system and much of the age of wireless is indebted to him. True, his great world wireless plan known as Wardenclyffe was a colossal failure, but Tesla was able to complete the tower in his vision of fantasy form through the futuristic drawings of Philip Paul and the fantastic Buck Rogers like sci-fi magazines of Hugo Gernsback. From electrical power distribution to cellular technology to remote control robots, vertical takeoff aircraft, and even Star Wars technology, we see Tesla's handprints. If ever there was a wizard, surely it was he. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Again, I must say this has been a great honor for me. Thank you. I do have the book, and we have some here for $20 if you're interested. Thank you again. This has been a tremendous honor, one of the highest points of my life. I mean that in all sincerity. Thank you.